Well, howdy there, folks. James, politicalfriar.com, coming at you again. I got the law hat on, and so we're going to talk about legal issues. We're really going to talk about the biggest legal issue. I've been holding this video, really, because it's the one that is the most important. It's the Trump case in Washington, D.C., where he is accused of criminally conspiring to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. And let's just take a second to think about what that allegation really means. In the year 2000, Mexico had its first truly peaceful transfer of power from one party to another, and everybody said, "Wow, Mexico's a democracy finally." This is the definition of democracy, is the ability to have a peaceful transfer of power from one political faction to the next, and for the losing political faction to accept its loss and say, "Hey, we'll get you next time." Well, that is what Donald Trump did not do, and in not doing, he committed probably the greatest sin an American can commit, because an American is, by definition, an ideological Democrat. And I mean that with a small d. That is to say, we believe that the power of the majority should rule. I wrote this. I can't contemporaneously speak on this like I do in most of my videos because it's just too complicated, and I want to make sure that I get it just right because it's that important. So here we go. Donald Trump, Washington, D.C. On August 1st, Donald Trump was indicted on 4 conspiracy charges related to his effort to remain in power despite losing the 2020 presidential election. In 45 pages, special counsel Jack Smith accused Trump of conspiring to prevent the peaceful transfer of power from one president to the next. As Smith tells it, Trump's objective was to remain in power by any means he thought he could get away with. Mostly, this involved lawsuits disputing the results of the election. But when all of the more than 60 lawsuits failed, Donald Trump turned to extra legal means. Conspiracy is the charge. 3 of the 4 counts are for engaging in a conspiracy. Conspiracy is a crime with 2 elements. First, 2 or more people must conspire to commit a crime. Second, at least one of the conspirators must take some overt action in furtherance of the conspiracy. Well, here, examples can help when understanding law. Scenario 1, Donald wants to steal a TV but takes no action. Well, no crime. Just wanting to commit a crime isn't a crime. Scenario 2, well, Donald shares his desire to steal a TV with Rudy, who agrees to help, but neither of them do anything. No crime. Just conspiring to commit a crime isn't a crime. Scenario 3, Donald and Rudy agree to steal a TV together. Then Rudy goes to the hardware store and buys a handcart to make it easier to carry the stolen TV away. Now we have a crime. Once Rudy took action to further the conspiracy, both Donald and Rudy are guilty of conspiracy. Got it? An agreement to commit a crime plus some overt action by one of the people agreeing to make it happen is the crime. Trump's conspiracy. Well, let's apply this to Donald Trump. The indictment alleges 3 criminal conspiracies with the same objective: preventing the peaceful transfer of power. In the interest of keeping this video short and understandable, I'll just discuss one. I think it's the easiest to understand. That's the fake elector scheme. John Eastman is the easily identifiable co-conspirator 2 in the indictment. He was a prominent conservative lawyer and law professor in California. After Trump's election loss, he devised a plan to keep Trump in office. The plan boiled down to having Vice President Pence declare Trump the winner of the election at a ceremonial proceeding on January 6th, where the electoral votes are counted. Well, to give Pence some cover for his obviously false statements, Eastman arranged for folks who would have been Trump's electors if he had won, to meet and cast electoral votes for Trump in the 7 states that he actually lost. Concurrently, the Biden electors would, because Biden won, cast their votes appropriately according to state and federal law. Then both sets of electoral college votes would be sent for counting by Pence on January 6th. Well, Pence, having 2 sets of electoral votes before him, would then choose, of course, to count the fraudulent votes for Trump and declare Trump the victor. Good plan, right? No. Plan's crazy. It is blatantly anti-factual because Trump lost. But Trump bought it because he didn't want to believe in reality. And it turns out his want to believe in what he wants trumps reality. Okay, how is this criminal? Because you have to be committing a crime, or at least planning to commit a crime, to have conspiracy. Well, in the post-Civil War South, groups like the Ku Klux Klan regularly intimidated election officials into not counting votes, particularly those votes cast by black citizens. Well, to address this, Congress passed 18 U.S.C. Section 241. The statute makes it a federal crime to interfere with a citizen's right to have their vote counted. Thus, Eastman's plan to prevent the people in 7 states from having their votes properly counted on January 6th was an attempted crime. But remember, we're talking about conspiracy here. So, how did Eastman's criminal plan become Trump's completed crime? Well, back to the 2 elements of conspiracy. A criminal plan, Eastman's, shared by at least 2 people, Trump and Eastman, and a step to further it here, Eastman shared his criminal plan with Trump repeatedly. We know this because Trump's publicly and repeatedly advocated for Pence to do his part to carry it off. So a plan shared by at least Eastman and Trump to commit a crime. Check. An overt act is the second element. An overt act in furtherance of the plan to commit a crime. Well, Eastman arranged for the fake electoral votes to be cast and sent to Pence on January 6th. That's a pretty overt act in furtherance of the criminal plan. So, element 2, check. Assuming these facts are proved in court, and that seems easy, Trump committed a felony when Eastman put his criminal plan into motion. Listen. The indictment is much more complex than this very brief recounting above. It includes 4 charges. I gave you 1. It includes 6 conspirators. I introduced you to 1 other than Trump. I urge you to go really and read the indictment for yourself. When Jack Smith, in his less than 3-minute announcement of the charges, encouraged you to read it, he said the right thing. It's not that long. It's an easy read. You will do yourself some good by understanding what's happening to a former president of the United States and just how badly he's betrayed this country. All right, defenses. Hey, in any legal case, the defense gets a say. And so let's analyze the defenses that have come up in the public for Donald Trump and see if any of them are going to do him any good. So, First Amendment. John Lauro, one of Trump's lawyers, argued that Trump's public advocacy for Eastman's criminal plan is protected by the First Amendment. The argument goes that Trump merely provided moral support in the form of protected political speech. Thus, Trump took no action in furtherance of the conspiracy. Well, this argument is, for lack of a better word, hogwash. The indictment lists multiple instances when Trump was informed of Eastman's criminal plan and he agreed to implement it, even asking for updates as to how it's going. And remember, a conspiracy requires one of the conspirators to act, not all of them. Even if Trump's public advocacy for Eastman's plan was not action unto itself, Trump is still on the hook for Eastman's action. Remember Rudy buying the handcart? It's the same thing. You are engaged in a criminal conspiracy if you agree to the crime, even if you don't do anything. If your conspirator does, you're on the hook. I've heard another First Amendment argument. It holds that Trump's communications with Eastman is protected speech, so no conspiracy could be formed. Well, the First Amendment doesn't protect all speech. In fact, conspiracy charges always include speech in one form or another. One cannot enter into conspiracy without communicating, right? This argument is worse than the above one because if this was true, conspiracy wouldn't be a crime. It wouldn't even exist. And just ask the thousands of people in jail for committing conspiracy about how well that argument goes for them. Oh, I was exercising my First Amendment rights when we planned to rob the bank and bought guns. No, that's not how the First Amendment works at all. Hogwash isn't even a harsh enough word for that argument. Well, let's talk about attorney-client privilege, because this is another defense I've run into. It says that, well, Eastman was Trump's lawyer. Their communications are privileged and so can't be used against him. Well, no. This argument falls under even the lightest of scrutiny. See, the Supreme Court's answered this question directly when it recognized the crime fraud exception to attorney-client privilege. Speech made by a client to an attorney in furtherance of a crime is not privileged, and that's exactly what Trump is accused of. So, speech between Eastman and Trump regarding Eastman's criminal plans, they're not protected. This argument stinks. It's something where people should be embarrassed for even forwarding it. Knowledge of criminality. Okay, well, we're getting better here. But what if Trump didn't know that Eastman's plan was criminal? Does that forgive him? The quick answer is no. It's a better argument than the attorney-client privilege and the First Amendment, but it doesn't hold water legally, and I'll tell you why. See, it's an axiom of American law that ignorance of the law is not a defense. You are charged with knowing what the law is, and you can be punished even if you break it by accident. So here's an example. New York allows its drivers to pump their own gas, while New Jersey requires a gas station attendant. Well, imagine a New Yorker pops over the George Washington Bridge into New Jersey and stops to fill up. When the police officer writes our New York driver a $250 ticket for violating New Jersey law, the wayward New Yorker will have to pay it. Lack of knowledge of New Jersey law isn't relevant to the fact that the driver violated the law. Therefore, he's got to pay the fine. The same principle applies here. Nowhere in the two elements of a conspiracy charge is there a requirement that the conspirators know they're about to commit a crime. The inquiry is whether the conspiracy was objectively to commit a crime. Whether Trump knew, should have known, didn't know, isn't actually relevant to his criminal liability. Well, there's an exception to the doctrine that ignorance of the law is no defense, so let's make sure we address it. The exception occurs when a person reasonably relies on incorrect advice from a government official. Say our New York driver from the gas station example called a police chief in New Jersey and asked about the gas pumping rules. Well, if the police chief said that drivers could pump their own gas in New Jersey, then maybe the New Jersey driver might have a defense that he was relying on a government official. Well, Trump maintains that he relied on the advice of his co-conspirators, who told him that what he was doing was legal. And even though he was told by others that it was not legal, maybe he didn't have the right to rely on the person who gave him the advice that he agreed with. Heck, maybe. For the exception to apply, the bad advice must come from a government official, a magistrate in the common law, who has reason to know the law. then the defendant must reasonably rely on that bad advice. For the first part of the test, all but one of Trump's bad advisors is disqualified. He cannot rely on the advice of Eastman or anyone else who was not a government official, a magistrate. Well, however, co-conspirator number 4, Jeffrey Clark, was the acting deputy attorney general. Is he a reliable government official? Maybe. Well, finally, the person seeking to use the exception must show that he reasonably relied on the bad advice. Well, did Trump reasonably rely on the bad advice? It's a big lift to say that Trump was reasonable to ignore the advice of all the other government officials who told him that his scheme was illegal in favor of one acting attorney general whose most recent assignment was working for the Environmental and National Resources Division. I suppose we finally found ourselves a question for the jury. If Trump's acquitted, it will probably be because of jury nullification in politics. But if Trump is acquitted on any kind of solid legal ground, it'll be because he followed the advice of Jeffrey Clark. That's thin. But I gave you the legal analysis, including the ways that he'll get off. In conclusion, do I think Trump committed the crimes that he's accused of? Yes, I do. Do I think that Trump will be convicted of those crimes and sent to jail? I wish I wasn't so sure that Trump's final defense, it's fundamentally political. If Trump wins the presidency, he can probably make this all go away. Self-pardons and abuse of power are apparently not a problem for the guy. It would be a truly black day for America if that happened, but it could. Your fellow countrymen are advocating for it. Anyway, it's just a thought. Let me know how wrong I am in the comments down below. Hit a like, subscribe for the next one, and I really appreciate it. Thanks.